The meeting room on Galactic Council Station Harmony 7 was filled with different alien beings, all sitting around a large metal table. The air felt heavy and tense. Ambassador Rebecca Hayes sat straight in her chair, her hands folded neatly on the table. She wore her dark blue uniform with the Earth symbol on her shoulder. Across from her, Trade Minister Krelvox showed his sharp teeth in what looked like a mean smile. Krelvox was a Zephyrian, and he looked like a giant lizard that could walk on two legs. His green and brown scales caught the light from above, and his yellow eyes stared at Rebecca with anger. Every time he spoke, his long tongue came out between his teeth like a snake. "Your human colonies are in our way," Krelvox said in his rough voice. "We want to expand our territory, but your little settlements block our ships. Maybe something bad will happen to them soon." Rebecca did not move. She had been sitting here for 6 long hours, listening to threats and insults. The other aliens in the room looked worried. There was Veltar, who looked like he was made of blue crystal. When he was nervous, his body made soft musical sounds. Right now, those sounds were getting louder and higher. Next to him sat Ambassador Luxera from the Luminari people. She looked like she was made of bright light shaped like a person, but now her glow was getting weaker. She kept looking at the door like she wanted to leave. "Minister Krelvox," Rebecca said calmly, "we came here to talk about fair trade. Our colonies have been there for 20 years. We built farms and factories. Families live there." The Zephyrian laughed, and it sounded like rocks scraping together. "Fair? Your weak species does not understand strength. In space, the strong take what they want. The weak get nothing." He leaned forward, putting his clawed hands on the table. "My ships have big weapons. Your colonies have small defenses. Do you see the problem, human?" Rebecca picked up her electronic pen and set it down very carefully. The small sound it made seemed loud in the quiet room. "I see that we have different ideas about how to solve problems." "There is no problem to solve." Krelvox hit the table with his fist. "You will move your colonies or we will move them for you. Your choice." The crystal alien Veltar made a worried humming sound. He spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "Perhaps we should take a short break to think about this." "No break." Krelvox stood up, his full height reaching almost 8 feet. "I'm tired of talking. Humans talk too much and do too little. You are weak. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are old. Why should the great Zephyrian collective waste more time with you?" Rebecca sat very still. Her face showed no emotion, but something in her eyes changed. The other aliens noticed it right away. Luxera's light form started to flicker like a candle in the wind. "You know what happened to the last species that got in our way?" Krelvox continued. "The Deltans thought they were clever too. Now their home world grows our food. Their people work in our mines." He walked around the table, his claws clicking on the metal floor. "Your Earth looks like a nice place. Good air, lots of water. My people would enjoy living there." Rebecca's jaw moved slightly, like she was biting down on something hard. "Minister, you seem to be confusing negotiation with threats." "Smart human. Yes, these are threats. What will you do about it?" Krelvox stopped right behind her chair. "Will you call your little fleet? Will you send angry messages? Will you cry to the council?" The room became very quiet. Even the humming from Veltar stopped. Luxera was now so dim that she was almost invisible. Rebecca stood up slowly and turned to face the big Zephyrian. She looked very small next to him, but she did not step back. Her voice stayed calm and even. "Minister Krelvox, I want you to understand something very clearly. For the past 6 hours, I have listened to your demands. I have been patient with your insults. I have tried to find ways we could work together." She paused and took a deep breath. "But threatening my people's homes, talking about taking our planet, comparing us to species you have conquered." Rebecca's voice got quieter, not louder. "Now I'm actually getting annoyed." The effect was immediate and strange. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Veltar's crystal body started making high, scared sounds. Luxera's light form suddenly became bright again, but it was flickering fast like an alarm. "Annoyed?" Krelvox laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. "What will you do, small human? Hit me? Scream? Cry?" Rebecca walked to the big window that showed the space around the station. Ships moved back and forth like busy insects. "Computer, please connect me to Admiral Thompson on the HMS Tenacious." A blue light appeared above the table, and suddenly a human man in a military uniform was standing there. He looked serious and professional. "Ambassador Hayes, what do you need?" "Admiral, I'm afraid we're going to need Protocol 7. The Admiral's face showed just a tiny smile. "Should I inform Captain Williams and the engineering team?" Yes, please. And make sure they bring their creative supplies. Understood. We'll be ready in 30 minutes. The light disappeared. Rebecca turned back to face Krelvox, who was now looking less sure of himself. Retriage. The change in the room was like watching ice form on a warm window. Luxera, the light being from the luminary, started flickering so fast that she looked like a broken lamp. Her voice came out in quick, nervous bursts of sound. I just remembered an important meeting, she said, her light getting dimmer. Very important. Cannot wait. She moved toward the door like she was floating on air, but much faster than before. Veltar, the crystal alien, was making sounds like a whole orchestra of nervous birds. His blue body was shaking, and the musical notes coming from him were high and worried. He stood up from his chair, his crystal feet clicking on the floor. Yes, I also have urgent business, Veltar said quickly. Must check on crystal things. Very important crystal things. He hurried after Luxera, his body making scared chiming sounds with every step. Within 2 minutes the room was almost empty. Only Rebecca, Krelvox, and one young Zephyrian assistant remained. The assistant looked at his boss with worried yellow eyes, like he wanted to leave too but was too scared to move. Krelvox watched the other aliens run away, and his confident smile started to fade. But he was too proud to show fear. He puffed out his chest and made his voice louder. Good. Let the weak ones run. Now we can talk like real warriors. But his voice shook just a little bit. Rebecca walked slowly to the big window that showed space outside the station. Her movements were calm and smooth, but there was something different about the way she held her shoulders. She looked out at the busy space traffic, cargo ships, passenger vessels, and patrol craft moving in organized patterns. Tell me, Minister, Rebecca said without turning around, how many ships does your people's fleet have in this sector? Krelvox straightened up, happy to talk about his military power. 57 warships, all armed with plasma cannons and shield breakers. More than enough to handle any problem. 57, Rebecca repeated softly. And they follow the same patrol routes every day? Of course. Discipline and order make a strong fleet. Not like your scattered human ships that wander around like lost children. Rebecca finally turned around. Her face still looked calm, but her eyes were different now. They reminded Krelvox of deep water, quiet on top but with strong currents underneath. Computer, she said in her normal voice, please show current positions of all Zephyrian military vessels in this sector. The air above the table filled with a map made of light. Tiny dots showed where ships were located. Red dots for Zephyrian ships, blue dots for human ships, and other colors for different species. How did you get this information? Krelvox demanded. Our ship locations are secret. Oh, they're not secret, Rebecca said with a small smile. Space is very big but ships need to talk to each other. They send signals. Those signals can be heard by anyone who knows how to listen. She touched a control, and the map changed to show ship movements over the past month. Lines appeared, showing where each ship had traveled. The Zephyrian ships all followed the same few paths, like ants walking on invisible roads. Your fleet is very organized, Rebecca continued. Same routes, same timing, same communication frequencies. Very predictable. The young Zephyrian assistant started backing toward the door. His boss was too focused on the map to notice. So what if you can see our ships? Krelvox said, but his voice was not as strong as before. You still cannot fight us. Your human fleet is too small. You're right, Rebecca agreed. In a direct fight, your 57 ships would probably beat our 12 ships in this area. Good thing we don't plan to fight you. What do you mean? Rebecca touched the control again. Now the map showed supply lines, thin colored threads connecting different stations and planets. The Zephyrian supply routes looked like a spider web, with the threads meeting at a few central points. Your ships need fuel, Rebecca said simply. They need food for the crews. They need replacement parts when things break. All of that comes from supply ships that follow very specific routes. Krelvox stared at the map. His mouth opened a little, showing his sharp teeth, but no words came out. Supply ships are not warships, Rebecca continued. They don't have strong weapons or heavy armor. They're built to carry cargo, not to fight. And if something happened to those ships? She let the words hang in the air like a question. You wouldn't dare attack supply ships. Krelvox said, but he sounded less sure now. That would be. What? Rebecca asked. Unfair? Like threatening to destroy colonies where families live? Like talking about taking over someone's home planet? The room was very quiet except for the soft humming of the station systems. Through the window they could see more ships arriving, human ships with the clean, efficient design that human engineers were known for. When humans get annoyed, Rebecca said in her calm voice, we don't usually get angry the way other species do. We don't shout or break things or make threats. We think. We plan. We solve problems. She walked back to the table and sat down in her chair, folding her hands like she had at the beginning of the meeting. The problem, Minister Krelvox, is that your people seem to think that being peaceful means being helpless. That's a very dangerous mistake to make. In the corridor outside the meeting room, Ambassador Davies from the Centauri Republic grabbed his friend's arm. His blue skin was pale with worry, and his 4 eyes were wide with fear. We have to leave the station right now, Davies whispered to Ambassador Zekrin, who had skin like silver metal and 3 arms. Do you remember what happened at the Kepler mining station? Zekrin's metal face showed confusion. That was just a small fight over some asteroids. The humans won, but it was nothing special. Nothing special? Davies pulled his friend toward the escape pods. Other aliens were already hurrying down the hallways, carrying bags and looking scared. Let me tell you what really happened there. They walked quickly as Davies told the story. 3 years ago, human mining ships were working in the Kepler asteroid field. They had permission from the Galactic Council. Everything was legal and fair. But the Krillian Empire wanted those asteroids too. Zekrin nodded. Everyone knew the Krillians were bullies who took what they wanted by force. The Krillians sent pirates to attack the human ships, Davies continued. They thought if they made it look like random pirate attacks no one would blame them. 3 human cargo ships were destroyed. 47 people died. They reached the escape pod area, where aliens were arguing about who could leave first. Davies and Zekrin got in line, but Davies kept talking. Captain Marcus Johnson was in charge of the human security ships. When he found out the pirates were actually working for the Krillians, he requested a meeting with their commander. He was very polite. Very calm. So what happened? Zekrin asked. The Krillian commander laughed at him. Said the humans were too weak to do anything about it. Said maybe more human ships would have accidents if they didn't leave the asteroid field. Davies shuddered as he remembered. That's when Captain Johnson said it. Those exact words. Now I'm actually getting annoyed. The Krillian commander just laughed harder. They got into an escape pod with 6 other worried aliens. As the pod moved away from the station, Davies looked back through the small window. What Captain Johnson did next, it wasn't normal fighting. He didn't attack the Krillian fleet directly. Instead he started with the pirates. But pirates are hard to catch, Zekrin said. They hide and run away. Not from humans when they're really focused, Davies replied. Captain Johnson studied how the pirates worked. He learned their patterns, their hiding spots, their favorite targets. Then he started leaving traps. The escape pod was now far from the station, but Davies could see human ships arriving in organized groups. They moved like they had planned this for months. The first trap was brilliant, Davies continued. Johnson had his people send a fake distress call from a cargo ship full of expensive medical supplies. When the pirates came to steal it, they found human marines waiting for them. An old Vorthack in the escape pod started humming nervously. I remember hearing about that. But it was just one pirate ship. That was just the beginning, Davies said. Johnson didn't stop there. He questioned the pirates and learned about their secret bases. Then he found out which Krillian officials were paying them. Davies's voice got quieter, like he was telling a scary story. Within 2 weeks, Johnson had captured 37 pirate ships. He used their own communication codes to trick other pirates into traps. He turned their hideouts into prisons. He even convinced some of the pirates to work for him instead. How? Zekrin asked. He offered them something better than what the Krillians gave them. Fair pay, legal work, and protection from their old bosses who would want to kill them for getting caught. The aliens in the escape pod were all listening now. Even the ones from species that didn't usually talk to each other. But the most amazing part, Davies continued, was what he did to the Krillian Empire itself. See, pirates keep records of who pays them and how much. Johnson found all those records. Davies paused for effect. Those records showed that the Krillian attacks weren't just about the asteroids. They had been planning to start a war and blame it on pirates. They had already picked out which human colonies to attack first. What did Johnson do with that information? Asked a small, furry alien from the back of the pod. He sent copies to every government in the galaxy. To news organizations. To trade groups. To anyone who would listen. Davies smiled grimly. Suddenly, everyone knew that the Krillians were using pirates to attack innocent traders. Their reputation was destroyed overnight. And then, Zekrin pressed. Then Johnson offered the Krillian Emperor a deal. They could have the asteroid mining rights they wanted, but they had to pay damages to the families of the people who died. They had to arrest their own officials who had hired the pirates. And they had to let human security ships patrol their trade routes to make sure no more pirate attacks happened. Davies looked back at the station, which was now just a small dot of light. The Emperor agreed to everything. He even thanked Captain Johnson for finding the corruption in his own government. The escape pod was quiet for a moment. Finally, the old Vortak spoke up. So the humans didn't actually fight a war? That's the point, Davies said. When humans get really annoyed, they don't just win fights. They solve the whole problem so completely that everyone ends up better off. Everyone except the people who caused the problem in the first place. Back in the empty meeting room, Minister Krelvox looked around nervously. The big space that had been full of alien diplomats now felt cold and quiet. Only he, his young assistant, and Ambassador Rebecca remained. His assistant was standing by the door, ready to run if needed. Where did everyone go? Krelvox demanded, trying to sound angry instead of worried. Rebecca looked up from her tablet computer with the same friendly smile she had worn all day. Oh, I think they remembered they had important things to do somewhere else. It happens sometimes during long meetings. She touched her tablet and the big screen on the wall lit up with pictures and numbers. Krelvox saw maps of space, charts showing ship movements, and lists of information about Zephyrian military operations. What is all this? He asked. Just some research my people have been doing, Rebecca said in a cheerful voice. We humans like to learn about our neighbors. It's a hobby of ours. Through the big window, Krelvox could see more human ships arriving. They moved in perfect formation like they had practiced this many times. The ships were not the biggest or the most heavily armed, but something about the way they moved made him nervous. You cannot scare the mighty Zephyrian collective with a few small ships, he said, but his voice cracked a little. Oh, I'm not trying to scare anyone, Rebecca replied. I'm just showing you some interesting facts we've discovered about your people's operations in this area. She touched the tablet again, and the screen showed a detailed map of all the Zephyrian supply routes. Red lines connected their military bases to fuel stations, food suppliers, and repair docks. It looked like a picture of someone's blood vessels. For example, Rebecca continued, did you know that all of your fleet's fuel comes from just 3 stations? That's very efficient, but it also means that if something happened to those stations. She didn't finish the sentence, but Krelvox understood. His scales started changing color from green to a worried yellow. You would not dare attack civilian supply stations, he said. Attack. Rebecca looked surprised. Oh no, Minister, I would never suggest attacking anyone. But there are so many other possibilities. She touched the screen, and it showed detailed information about the fuel stations. Look at this. Station Alpha 7 has been having problems with their computer systems lately. Random glitches, they think. And Station Beta 3 keeps having scheduling mix-ups with their cargo deliveries. Krelvox stared at the information. Those problems were real, but how did the humans know about them? Station Gamma 12 is the most interesting, Rebecca went on. Their main computer got infected with a virus last week. Very strange virus. It didn't damage anything, but it kept playing old Earth music through the communication system. The workers said it was actually quite pleasant. The young Zephyrian assistant made a small scared sound. Krelvox turned to look at him and the assistant whispered, Sir, that music virus, our ships have been reporting the same problem. Rebecca heard this and nodded. Oh yes, that virus has been spreading through your communication networks. Don't worry though. It's completely harmless. It just plays music and occasionally displays helpful efficiency tips. Efficiency tips? Krelvox asked weakly. Simple things really. Better routes that use less fuel. Maintenance schedules that prevent breakdowns. Ways to improve crew morale. Rebecca smiled brightly. We humans love to help others work more efficiently. She touched the tablet once more, and the screen filled with even more detailed information. Ship crew schedules, cargo manifests, patrol routes, communication codes, supply inventories, everything the Zephyrian military did was laid out like an open book. The fascinating thing is, Rebecca continued conversationally, your entire operation in this sector depends on routine. Same routes, same schedules, same suppliers. It works very well when everything goes smoothly. Krelvox was starting to understand and his throat felt dry. What do you want? What? I don't want anything, Minister. I'm just sharing some observations. Rebecca stood up and walked to the window again. For instance, did you know that your patrol ships all refuel at the same time each week? Every Tuesday between 0800 and 1200 hours. She pointed to the ships moving outside the window. And those cargo ships carrying replacement parts for your weapon systems? They all follow Route 7 through the asteroid field. Very predictable. Stop, Krelvox said quietly. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I boring you with technical details? Rebecca turned back to him with innocent eyes. I just find it so interesting how complex systems work. Take your communication network, for example. Every message your ships send goes through 3 relay stations before reaching its destination. She showed him another screen full of communication pathways. If someone wanted to, they could intercept every message, decode every signal, and even send false messages that looked completely real. But of course that would be wrong. The room was very quiet except for the humming of the station's computers. Krelvox looked at all the information on the screen, then at Rebecca's calm face, then at the human ships outside. When you said you were getting annoyed, he said slowly, you meant? I meant that it was time to stop being polite and start being thorough, Rebecca replied. You see, Minister, humans have a different approach to problem solving than most species. 3 hours later, Minister Krelvox sat at the same metal table, but everything had changed. His clawed hands shook slightly as he pressed his official seal onto the treaty document. The papers in front of him were thick with detailed agreements, all written in clear, simple language that left no room for confusion. The treaty was unlike anything the Zephyrian Collective had ever signed. It gave humans the right to use trade routes that Krelvox had claimed just hours before. It included strict rules about where Zephyrian ships could patrol, with heavy penalties for any navigation errors near human colonies. Most surprising of all, the new shipping routes that Ambassador Rebecca had suggested would actually save the Zephyrians time and fuel. I don't understand, Krelvox muttered as he finished signing. These new routes are better than our old ones. More efficient. Why didn't we think of this before? Rebecca smiled as she collected the signed papers. Sometimes it takes fresh eyes to see new possibilities. My engineering team spent a lot of time studying your current routes. They found several ways to improve them. She handed him a small data pad. These are the complete navigation charts for the new routes, along with suggested maintenance schedules for your fleet. Captain Williams thinks you could reduce your fuel costs by 30% and cut travel time by almost half. Krelvox stared at the data pad like it might bite him. His young assistant, who had been hiding by the door for hours, finally came forward to look at the information. Sir, the assistant whispered, these calculations are correct. If we use these routes, our efficiency reports will be the best in the sector. But why? Krelvox asked Rebecca. Why help us after we threatened your people? Rebecca packed her papers into a neat case. Because efficient neighbors make good neighbors. When your ships don't waste time and fuel on bad routes, you're less likely to look for shortcuts through other people's territory. She stood up and smoothed down her uniform. Also, happy crews are less likely to cause trouble. The new routes pass by some beautiful nebulas and 3 recreational stations. Your people will enjoy the journey more. Krelvox looked out the window. The human ships were still there, but they no longer seemed threatening. They looked more like helpful guides showing the way forward. What about our patrol ships that were headed toward your colonies? He asked quietly. Oh, I believe your fleet commander already recalled them, Rebecca replied. He said something about wanting to test the new routes immediately. Very forward-thinking of him. She walked toward the door, then paused. One more thing, Minister. That music virus in your computer systems? It will stop playing in about a week. But the efficiency improvements it installed will remain. Think of it as a gift. As Rebecca left the room, Krelvox sat alone with his thoughts. His assistant was reading through the treaty details, making small sounds of amazement. Sir, this section here. They've given us exclusive trading rights to 3 systems we never even asked for. And look at this part about technology sharing. They're offering to help us upgrade our shield systems. Krelvox rubbed his scaly forehead. I came here to take their territory by force. Now I'm leaving with more than I ever hoped to gain, and I'm thanking them for it. Word of what happened at Station Harmony 7 spread through the galaxy's communication networks faster than light itself. On every trading post, military base, and diplomatic station, beings were talking about the human ambassador who had solved a territorial dispute by making everyone's life better. On the outer rim of Andromedan space, a young cadet named Zixtal was listening to his instructor explain human psychology during their xenobiology class. Teacher Mordan, Zixtal asked, raising one of his forearms, I'm confused about something. The humans are listed in our database as one of the most peaceful species in the galaxy. They have fewer wars than almost anyone else. They follow diplomatic rules better than most. So why do all the older officers tell scary stories about making humans angry? Teacher Mordan was an old being who had lived through many first contact situations. His gray skin showed the wrinkles of age and experience. He thought carefully about how to answer. Young Zixtal, that's exactly why everyone fears human anger. Most species, when they get furious, act like wild animals. They attack without thinking. They break things. They hurt people. Then later, when they calm down, they feel sorry for what they did. The teacher walked to the window of their classroom, which looked out at the busy space lanes around their station. Human cargo ships moved alongside vessels from dozens of other species, all following the same traffic rules. But humans are different, Mordan continued. When humans get truly annoyed, they don't lose control. Instead, they become more focused, more creative, more determined. They don't just solve the problem in front of them. They solve the whole system that created the problem. Zixtal looked puzzled. That sounds helpful, not scary. It is helpful, the teacher agreed. That's what makes it terrifying. Because you realize that this entire time, while you thought you were being clever or strong or intimidating, the humans were just being polite. They could have solved your problems, fixed your mistakes, and improved your life all along. They just chose not to interfere. The old teacher looked out at the peaceful traffic of ships from many worlds. The galaxy is much safer when humans are content to let others learn from their own mistakes. But when you push them too far. He shook his head. When you push them too far, you discover just how much they were holding back out of simple politeness. Zixtal stared out at the human ships with new respect and just a little bit of healthy fear.